of this country. James Baldwin was its artistic conscience. Throughout the 1960s and 1970s, Mr. Baldwin continues his lover's quarrel with America through his books, Another Country, Blues for Mr. Charlie, Tell Me How Long the Train's Been Gone, Going to Meet the Man, If Beale Street Could Talk, and through the dialogues with Nicky Giovanni and Margaret Mead. In all of these works of fiction, drama, and speech, he produced a poignant and memorable testimony to what it means to be black and American, reminding his readers in The Fire Next Time that, quote, everything now we must assume is in our hands. We have no right to assume otherwise. If we, and now I mean the relatively conscious whites and the relatively conscious blacks, who must, like lovers, insist on or create the consciousness of others, do not falter in our duty now, we may be able, handful that we are, to end the racial nightmare and achieve our country and change the history of the world, end quote. James Baldwin's essay, The Fire Next Time, as we now know so tragically, warned all of us, black and white, of the catastrophic events of the 1960s, the assassinations of John and Robert Kennedy, the assassinations of Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. We know from his writings how deeply the death of Martin Luther King affected him. The death of King was a terrible wound for Mr. Baldwin and for all of us. The two men were the living conscience of the nation, and it is therefore extremely appropriate that we should have the honor today to award James Baldwin the Martin Luther King Medal. Coretta King and Alex Haley have received this medal before Mr. Baldwin, and extending the tribute once again to the most important living black author in America, the City College is indeed passing on a legacy embodied in the meaning and spirit and achievement of Martin Luther King. On behalf of the City College community, I have the honor to present Mr. James Baldwin with the Martin Luther King Medal, which is only awarded on rare occasions awarded to those persons who, in the judgment of City College, have demonstrated a lifelong dedication to humanitarian ideals. I have the honor to present Mr. Baldwin to speak to you. Bravo!
Good morning. Can you all hear me? All right. I don't know how to tell you how happy I am to be here. So I won't try. But I'm very lucky to have a home to come to. And I want to thank you for that. I am going to improvise because I'm not very good at making speeches. And the theory is that I will rap for a while, and that you will then ask me questions, which I will not be able to answer, which I won't duck. We are talking about the artist in an alien culture. Well, that is what we're talking about in principle. And I've been thinking about it. There's a contradiction in terms. It allows me to say one thing safely, which is the worst thing about being an artist, and the one thing an artist can scarcely ever convey and doesn't really want to face, is his sense of helplessness. That is to say, he does not build bridges, he does not dam rivers, he does not build cities, he cannot run a bank, and in his lowest moments he feels he cannot, he doesn't save his friends. Martin is dead. And as time goes on, you begin to feel a terrible and overwhelming and a kind of accelerating futility. Is this moment that one has to redefine the word culture. There's a level on which no artist can be in an alien culture because the culture produces him. He is produced by the people who need him. In the same way that one needs somebody to dig ditches, to hold potatoes, to build cities, to run banks, to do all the work of the world. The people of the world somehow manage to get it done, and one of the things they do in every generation, among all the people they produce, the pirates, the thieves, the bankers, they also produce people like me. And no one quite knows how that comes about. Now, the moment my poor mother, my beloved mother's in this audience, I can say safely, when I was very, very young, all I did, as far as she could see, was read books. And that's very disturbing. She thought I should have been out playing football. Did that, by the way. Didn't work very well. But in fact, I started to write around the time I started to read. And I was hung up on, not simply on words, but I was hung up on the life around me. I was hung up on my father's life, his working day, which I didn't really understand at all. But I could see something was happening to the man. He brought it home with him. I was hung up on my mother's life. All those people who came to our house every morning, the Lord sent. Every single one of them, the trouble of a mountain of trouble. And Mama there, sweeping the floor, sewing. I don't know what she was, how she bore it, I do not know. And of course, I resented these people because that was my mama, They were taking care of all her time. And of course, she was always having yet another baby, which is very bewildering when you're 6 or 7, 8, 9 or 10 years old. All right. But that is part of, part of the way I grew up. Now, some other artists will have another story. But the point I'm trying to get to is the story is not the point. Because all stories come out finally, in essence, to be the same story. That is the only reason we can talk to each other, and that is how we learn to love each other. My story is not special. Everybody's story is special. Because everyone is here for the first time, the first and only time. And we have a responsibility to each other for that reason. And if we're talking about the role of an artist, or the fact of an artist, or the mystery of an artist, one is really talking about the mystery, the fact of human destiny. One is really talking about the bridge between one human being and another. We are talking about the fact that between you and me, there's a vast amount between any two human beings of the unspoken. It comes through the eye. It comes through the touch. You fall in love, or you see a child. It is not something that you can't pick it up. It's like rain. But without it, nobody can live. The artist, I suppose, is the only person in the world who is compelled to say that over and over and over and over and over and over again in the teeth of whatever disaster. And no matter what seems to be going down, it is true. You know, I was sitting up here listening to the people talk, looking at my brother, looking at my mother, thinking about those streets outside. Oh, and I'm not a young man anymore, that's all right. And what I have seen in these streets, the criminal indifference of this city and this nation, the role until today that black people play in the American imagination, or what passes for such, the terror until today struck in the American soul by the idea of black liberty, because it is terror, make no mistake about that, because liberty is not given, you know, like at a quarter a week, like you pay insurance. You got it or you ain't got it, you know. And nobody give it to you. If they don't know how to give it to themselves, they cannot give it to you. Now, this has brought this country and all of the Western nations, every single Western nation, under a terrifying hammer. It is a hammer not merely of their past, but of their present, not merely the horrors perpetrated by, let us say, for example, the British Empire, the European empires. We could say let bygones be bygones if, in fact, it were the past. But we are paying all over the world until today for the results. We are paying for the British imperial policy wherever the British went. We are paying for that now. We are paying in this country now for the romance which allowed so many so-called white people to destroy so many so-called red men and to enslave until this hour black people, not only in this country, but again all over the world. Now, belatedly, we are worried. That is to say, I am not worried about the Russian presence in Africa. You know, sometimes you pick up the paper or you turn on the television set and you have the feeling that everybody thinks you are a fool. What are they telling me? How can I be worried about the Russian presence anywhere? I don't know what they will do to me. I am not tempted to go to Moscow. New York was quite enough. But I know this. I know that you can't scare me by saying so-and-so is a communist or a fascist. I know you. Whatever they've done, whatever they're doing, I know that. Maybe I have to go through that fire another day. But I was born in the crucible of the American Republic, and nobody else can scare me. I think, if I may suggest this, that gives us, we now, the black population of this country, and bear in mind something else I want to point out, though. I want to point out that my friend, the late Malcolm X, said that white was a state of mind. I will go further and say, and I defy any historian to contradict me, that white is an invention. There are no white people. Well, that is their problem. And I am not joking when I say it at all. For example, I'll leave that alone. We can come back to it later when you start rapping. But for example, it's useful to think of the price of the American ticket. A Greek in Greece is not white. He's a Greek. A Russian in Moscow is not white. He's a Russian. A Frenchman in Paris is not white. He's French. An Irishman in Dublin is not white. He's Irish. All of these people cross the ocean. They paid the price of the ticket. The price of the ticket was every single one of them, once they got here, became white. You know why they became white? Because we were here. And they had to do something. Until today, the only way, the resulting American, the only way he really knows up from down is where you are. That's the bottom. He knows that. He doesn't know anything else. He doesn't know what's up. If he did, no one would ever heard of Ronald Reagan, to say nothing of Eisenhower. And I won't go further for fear of libel suits. The energy of this country and the hope of this country, I believe this is all my heart, and I think time begins to prove it. The energy of this country is not to be found in the Empire State Building, on all the machinations of Washington, whether by peanut farmers or beer salesmen. The energy of this country is in the people who have paid for it, who live it, who know what this country is about, and who believe in it much more than anyone I know in Washington believes. The energy of this country is, after all, to use a rude example, let's say a man like Andrew Young did not come from nowhere. They would like to hang him, but they can't. We produced him. He cares enough about the country to try to correct it. So do we, if only to raise our children in a place where a human being can live. We do know how divided we are and however hard we suffer. We are still here, and we have endured something no other people in recorded history can even begin to talk about, because it is not even. It is not even, for the most part, known. At least the Jewish diaspora is sung about. Policies are made because of it, in favor of it or against it. Our diaspora was never written down. The man sang it. We've been singing it for generations. That is also how we got here, out of that awful descent into something much worse than the grave. We came up singing, and we gave this country and the world a music which was never in existence before. Look, I don't want, to be romantic. I don't want, to tell no lies. I know those streets. I grew up in those streets. I walk them too. I know that I'm in and out. So we all in and out in a way. I know about the junkies, the pushers, the children, the horrors outside this room right now. And it's worse in some ways than it was when I was growing up here. And yet, I'll never, I mean this, I don't know how this is so, but I know it's so. I've never yet seen us defeated. And it's not the moment to panic now. My friends, I speak to you all with my love. I speak to you out of what I have seen. I hope you're proud of me. I know I'm proud of you. If we have come this far and have upset the world, don't you know that American policy toward any country would be different if it wasn't for you? Don't you know that they would love to throw the Russians out of Africa or anybody else, including the Africans? And they can't do it because of you. They can't send you nowhere. They worn themselves out trying to kill you. You won't learn no sense. What do you, look at you. They are stuck with their history. We are creating ours. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Baldwin has just built another beautiful bridge between himself and us, and the light will always shine on it. And now perhaps he will carry out his promise and be generous enough to answer a few questions from the audience.
Okay. A big pardon? I'm sorry. Oh, my play. Well, I'm still involved in it. And to tell you the truth about that, I'm going to direct the play, yes. But I've been trying to finish a novel. But things don't always happen, exactly on time. The novel has taken longer than I thought it would. When the novel is over, I will then go into the theater, and then I'll tell you more about the play, but I know more about it myself. Yes. Where am I? No.
Here's the microphone, man, right here.
I can't understand you, I'm sorry.
Mike, right here, bro. Well, shut up then. Tell somebody else to talk. Next question. Next question. Next question. Next question. Next question.
Yes.
If you have questions, would you please try to come to the microphone?
It depends on which, first of all, it depends on which black person you mean. No, I'm not trying to be sardonic when I say that. I'm sorry, go on. Well, let's tell it like it is. You know, the average black or white man is not likely to put himself at the mercy of an unknown society. The people who go to Europe or who leave home in that sense, right, are mainly driven to do so. No one ever left home because he wanted to. You know, that's a romance. You know, that the black person in Europe is by definition, the only black person in Europe that you can talk about is a black American. Otherwise, he's an Algerian or Tunisian or a man from Senegal. He's a man from a colony, in short. You know, and he is both African and European. Europeans educated Africans for their purposes. So that black man is a very different man than the man you have in mind. Otherwise, he's a black GI. He's living, in that case, in a hostile society in the army. And if, for example, he's in Germany, he's in another hostile society outside. And it's short. Europe, after all, is the mother of America. And if you don't know where the doctrine of white supremacy comes from, all you have to do is go to Europe, and there it is. You know. Yes. But, right. I don't know. You know, first of all, I don't think anyone can give advice. But I think that the answer. Look, let me put it this way. There's a curious fact about black American life, black American experience, which is so obvious everyone overlooks it. When I said before that the Greek, the Russian, whatever, who came here immediately became white, right? That was the price of the ticket. One overlooks the fact that that meant that the Greek boy didn't talk to his Greek father because he had to learn English. And in that turning away from his Greek father who did not speak English, he lost something, you know, something of the utmost importance. It's one of the reasons that Americans until today have such trouble with their identities. It's a hidden reason, but I believe that, but it's a real reason. We have never been able, and this is the only answer I can give you, we've never been able, none of whatever, to deny our ancestors. We have had to honor them. But we come from generation, and we know it. You may have had to fight for your father, but you never had to repudiate it. You know, you never had to give him up in order to move up the American ladder. That is how you are standing on your feet, is how I'm standing on my feet too, you know, and that's the only advice I can give you. You've already taken it. Yes. Well, I can't talk about the Harlem Renaissance. I was born in 1924, which is when the Renaissance was in full flower. But I was not, you know. I mean, I didn't meet Langston Hughes, and I didn't get to the Cotton Club until the Cotton Club was about to close. I was born, but I was not present. And in any case, I don't think that one should look at produced Conley Cullen, it produced Langston Hughes. Again, it produced everyone sitting in this room. And it was the beginning of something, again, something so obvious no one ever notices it. It was the beginning of the black presence as artists in the world and for the first time. Dumas, for example, was a Frenchman. He was black, but he was a Frenchman. And Pushkin was black, but he was a Russian. It's only out of America that you get for the very first time a culture identifiably black, because it isn't white, you know, a language which is black, a music which is black, out of the collision which occurred on these shores in the American Republic. That is the importance of the Negro Renaissance. You know, everything came out of that moment, because that is when Europe, after all, the custodian of civilization, you know, the arsenal of God, was forced for the first time to recognize under heaven another sensibility, another language, another way of looking at the world, which began, in fact, to transform Europe. You can go a long, long way without hearing a single Scotch ballad, but I dare you to cross a border without hearing Aretha Franklin. Yeah. It's, to tell you the very honest truth, I haven't got to call myself a black writer. That's redundant. I am black, you know. And I want to add something to that, though. You cannot write about anybody from the outside. You cannot write about a black person or a Jewish person or a Greek. Anyone you're going to write about, if you're going to do it at all, you got to do it from the inside. You know, you got to become that person, that Greek, that Jew, that black man, that black woman. You know, and from the inside, there is no color. The responsibility an artist has to his community, to his culture, to himself, to his love, is to try to tell the truth about the experience that he is aware of. And obviously, if Beale Street could talk, it's about two black lovers, but it's a love story. You know? And they are black, and they're in terrible trouble because they're black. But the book is about the baby. And all of that, the baby is still on the way, and they're still responsible for that baby when it gets here. You know what I mean? Yeah, well, I'm sorry. Someone's ahead of you. I beg your pardon? Well, of course that's true. You know, I add, you can't tell a black man by the color of his skin, you know. But that has always been so. You know, there's nothing I can say except agree and except to say it's true. And it's one of the things you have to oppose. It's part of your duty to oppose it. Yes.
Excuse me, Mr. Mr. Baldwin, as an artist, can you please tell us why you were signatory to the ad hoc movement to end the Paul Robeson play?
Why I was signatory to the ad hoc
yes.
committee?
Can you please
well,
tell us?
I wrote a statement explaining that, I think, you know,
Yeah.
which should have appeared in the Amsterdam News or People's, I don't know.
It wasn't in the Amsterdam.
Well, in any case, my reason for, I admit, you know, that I'm not very much for committees. On the other hand, I knew Paul Robeson a little bit. I admired him enormously. I read the play. And what I said in my statement is that man is not Paul Robeson. And I said, too, that Paul Robeson, unlike, let us say, Marcus Garvey, is not an historical figure in limbo. He's not yet in the public domain. I knew him, you knew him, my baby sister heard him. He walked among us. He was a very, very, very powerful and beautiful majestic presence. And the play diminishes him to the level of a sort of youthful dark Eisenhower. Now, that's not Paul Robeson. That is why I signed the committee statement. I'm sorry, yes, you've been trying to... Well, you've asked me a very loaded question, to tell you the truth. Now, well, I can sum up my answer by discussing that letter. The letter was never answered, needless to say. The governor of North Carolina has since what has he done? He's lessened the sentence. That's right, but they're still in jail. They're still guilty. It is not a pardon, it is not a release. It is a conditional admission on the part of the state that they may have been in error, but you're still going to stay in jail. Now that is typical of the American performance. I say the American performance because I don't want to talk about the French or the English, or not French or English. But in terms of the country which I know, which produced me, nothing on that level has changed at all. People do not. People are as moral, to put it very brutally, in the mass, in general. A state, let us put it that way, is as moral as it can afford to be. And it cannot afford very much in the way of morality because it interferes with power. Every state intends to keep the power whether it is moral or not. And that applies to the American state, which I will say for the press, in the sight of all the world, is one of the most immoral states in the world.
Can I read something to you, something very quick? From Euripides. Life is short. Man should not wait his downfall to measure his height, and hands that reach beyond the grasp of the flesh miss the present. Life is short. Did you get that?
Yes.
Okay, that's from the Bacchae. You spoke about the American ladder, and I think it's legitimate here at City College to speak about the great American maze of bureaucracy and the political machinery which is so strangling us, so making it so difficult for us to get a grip on where we are, what we need to do to get to the light. You spoke about exile, and I recall to you Stephen Dedalus, Joyce's exiled youth portrait of the artist as a young man. And I recall to you Dedalus, the first artist in Greek mythology, who built the maze to hide the beast for the king. I'm an artist. I don't know where my blood comes from. I don't know where my roots come from. I know I was born here. I know I was born on the 4th of July. I know I'm an American. I know there's a big maze here that has to be taken down. I realize as an artist that I had a hand in building that maze. I intend to do it whatever the hell I can to get to the beast or deal with it somehow. You speak of yourself as an artist, and you've been called a maker of dreams, a weaver of dreams, a weaver of words. But the artist, to begin with, was a maker of things. And I think one of the things he did wrong was that he wasn't really careful about what happened to those things after he made them. He left them to the people in power. He left them to the king to deal with. I think it's our responsibility to be damn sure that anything we make, anything we breathe, anything anything we write, any dreams we weave must be very carefully watched because they will be abused. I'm saying, speak to me, tell me something about what we can do to break down the American maze, what we can do to get to the beast.
Look, you're asking me to be, first of all, a logician, which I'm not, and the American state is like any state. It's a very complex matter. It has no morals. A state, by definition, has no morals. Now, in that case, all that you, the citizen of the state, can do is to be a moral human being yourself. And for that, you need no one's advice.
The artist has more responsibilities, has greater responsibilities.
Look, the artist is, whether or not the artist is interested in politics is interested in the artist. By definition, he's a political target and a political man. That's not a problem you've got to worry about. The state sees that too. You still have to answer for your own life in the teeth of the state. And you cannot do it safely. You ain't going to go to prison with a whole lot of people. You're going to go alone. That's the truth about it. It's always been that way in every state. If you want to be an artist, you got to pay that price too.
All right.
You have a question?
Mr. Baldwin goes to a press conference now in room 121, so let's thank him again for his appearance here.
Out of 42nd Street, it has been impossible to wipe it out unless strict laws are imposed. Prostitution will continue on 42nd Street.
Any questions? Good, Jim? No? All right. Yvette?
Do you disagree with prostitution?
Yeah,
Why?
because they should have places out of the city for prostitution.
Why do you think that?
They should do what out of the city?
They should have places not in the main, in the main, how you call them? Main attraction.
Main business
Yeah.
district?
Why do you think that?
Don't you think that when you go to 42nd Street and you see all those women there,
Why do you gotta go there?
huh?
It doesn't bother me because they
It
prostitute.
doesn't-
Why do you think prostitutes prostitute? I'm gonna answer your question. I'm not finished.